In a peaceful village, there lived a girl named Oge. Oge was known for her beauty, but as she grew, people began to notice something else. She was selfish. This is the story of how Oge's selfishness almost destroyed her family and marriage, until life taught her a valuable lesson. As a child, Oge had everything a little girl could ask for. Her parents loved her dearly. She had toys and food in abundance, and she lived in a beautiful home. But despite all this, Oge refused to share. She kept her toys to herself, never letting her friends play with them. If her mother made food, Oge would hide her portion so she wouldn't have to share it with anyone else. During the village festivals, the children were always encouraged to bring food to share. It was a tradition that united the community, but Oge would always come empty-handed. Even though her mother had prepared enough food for her to take, instead, she would sit and watch as others ate and shared, never offering anything of her own. One day, her friend Nnenna told her, "Oge, if you never give, one day you will have nothing." Oge ignored this warning, thinking she didn't need anyone else. As she grew into a beautiful woman, many men came to ask for her hand in marriage. She eventually married a kind and hard-working man named Eddie. Eddie loved Oge and believed that marriage would soften her heart. But her selfishness followed her into her new home. Oge was not a generous wife. She kept secrets about everything she had and refused to share important decisions with Eddie. Whenever Eddie asked for her help, she would either say no or find an excuse. Even when it came to food, Oge's selfishness showed. She would cook for herself, but leave very little for Eddie. While the Igbo culture teaches that the wife is supposed to care for the home and the family, Oge's actions were the opposite. Eddie would come home from long days of work, only to find that there was barely enough food for him to eat. Eddie's patience began to run thin. He felt unloved and neglected. He worked hard to provide for the family, but Oge seemed only to care about herself. Over time, Eddie began to pull away from his wife. He spent less time at home, and soon, rumors started to spread through the village. Eddie had found comfort in the arms of another woman. This woman was kind, loving, and generous with her time and affection. Everything that Oge was not. When Oge heard the rumors, she was shocked and angry. She couldn't believe that Eddie would betray her like that. But deep down, she knew that her selfishness has pushed him away. One night, Oge couldn't sleep. The words of the village women who whispered about Eddie's affair rang in her ears. She remembered how, as a child, she had refused to share anything with her friends, and now she realized she was doing the same thing with her husband. She knew that if she didn't change, she would lose everything she loved. The next morning, Oge decided to visit Nneka, the oldest woman in the village and a wise elder. Nneka was known for helping people in difficult times. As they sat together under the shade of a large tree, Oge told Nneka everything about her childhood, her marriage, and Eddie's affair. Nneka listened quietly. Then she said, "Oge, selfishness is like a sickness. It destroys everything it touches. If you want to heal your marriage and your heart, you must learn to give, to share, and to care for others. Only then will you find peace. Oge took Nneka's words to heart. She realized that she needed to change, not just for herself but for her family. She apologized to her husband, admitting that her selfishness had driven him away. Over the next few weeks, Oge worked hard to rebuild her marriage. She began cooking large meals for the entire family, making sure that Eddie always had more than enough to eat. She involved Eddie in decisions and she became more generous with her time and her love. Eddie saw the changes in Oge. Slowly, he began to trust her again. He ended his relationship with the other woman and focused on mending their marriage. Oge's effort did not go unnoticed by the village. People saw how she had changed and they respected her for it. The final moment of healing came during the village's New Yam Festival, a time of celebration and renewal. Oge, for the first time in years, prepared a feast not only for her family but for the entire village. She cooked yam, soup, and meat, and invited everyone to share in the meal. At the festival, she stood before the village elders and apologized publicly to Eddie. She thanked him for his patience and promised to always put her family first. Eddie accepted her apology and together they renewed their vows in front of the whole village. The elders, pleased with their reconciliation, blessed them both. The village celebrated their reunion with dancing, drumming, and singing. Oge was no longer known for her selfishness, but for her generosity and her willingness to change. Moral lesson: Oge's story teaches us that selfishness can destroy everything, but with humility and love, even the worst mistakes can be fixed. Oge learned that true happiness comes from giving, not taking. Her journey from selfishness to generosity saved her marriage and made her a better person.